We look forward to the time when there is no more night, when your people can come out of hiding, when your people can't stop all the fighting, when peace is established across the nation, and we bow before you in adoration at the New Jerusalem, when the war is done, when the world is new, the tribes are one, the New Jerusalem, that's where we'll be, just worshiping the King of Kings, the God of all.
Shalom, all of you. Thank you for joining me this week's Bible study. I want to kind of cover a topic for this week and next week, even though it's already passed, is regarding the Feast of Purim, or basically the story of Queen Esther, the Israelite. Okay, and it's kind of a fun little study, and it's going to be not really talking so much about Esther, but more about Haman. All right, the man who tried to kill the Israelites. So this week's this is going to be part 1 for this week, and then next week we will cover part 2. And as some of you know, or many of you know, Purim, the Feast of Purim, is just a time to remember, like I said, Queen Esther and the fact that she was used to save the Israelites from being slaughtered by Haman. And it's kind of a fun time where people use noisemakers, dress up in costumes, make different kind of cookies and sweets and stuff, and they even make a little cookie that's shaped like a three-cornered, like a triangle, like a three-cornered hat filled with some kind of a fruit or a jam or something like that, and to basically remember the kind of hat that Haman, they say, wore at that time. This week is called the Haman, or this Bible study is called Haman and the Tree of Knowledge, and the Festival of Purim, redeeming Eden's first sin. Probably asking yourself, how in the world am I connecting the story of Haman with the Tree of Knowledge in the Garden of Eden? So let's find out. This can be rather interesting. We can read the Megillah, which is a bit like a child's story. The Megillah is the scrolls of Esther, all right, the story of Esther, starting with the arch villain, Haman the Agagite. We often think of him as a caricature, an evil incarnate, twirling his mustache, maybe squinting his eyes and doing evil things just for fun. We don't know that. But is that really all there is to Haman? He's just this flat, kind of one-dimensional villain guy, evil through and through? Allow us to challenge that idea just a little bit. Okay, so think about the great villains in the Western literature and culture, people like Darth Vader, maybe Hannibal Lecter, Professor Moriarty. Okay, these characters are complex and multidimensional. They have struggles. The struggles are real, at least for these characters. So wouldn't we at least expect that much when reading about Haman on the day of Purim? So when we read the Megillah with this kind of lens, the scrolls of Esther, we can open ourselves up to a really amazing story, one that is hiding just beneath the surface of the text. It's the real story of Haman. What motivated him and what made him tick? And if you want to understand this book on this holiday, you've got to know its central villain. Join us as we examine this question by looking at the book of Esther today and its mysterious connections to the Garden of Eden. Hold on, you'll see. And never think about Purim this same way again. So my name is Rabbi Harel Clint Fry, and I want to welcome you to Beit Shalom here in Pozzuoli, Italy, which I have to say it's a very interesting time right now to be here. But we are also having a very blessed time of just relaxing at this moment and actually studying the Word of God even more. So we just taking this moment of being under house. Basically, everybody's under house arrest to enjoy our time being in the Lord's presence. Purim is a great holiday for kids. Lots of dress up, lots of sending around treats. Like I said, lots of noisemakers. And when you get your first look at a book that's read on this day, the Scroll of Esther, it too kind of looks like a child's story, if you think about it. It's sort of like a fairy tale in a way. And I've even heard people say, well, it's not a real story. It's just kind of a story to teach us something. No, it really happened. All right. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament. So if we look at the Ark villain, this man by the name of Haman, sure what he's plotting to do is terribly serious. A genocide carried out in one single day. That's what he wants to do when all men, women, and children from the people of Israel are basically slated to die. How do we relate to it? It's like I said, it's kind of like a fairy tale to some. Every time Haman's name comes up, he gets booed. Okay, we dress up like him and make fun of him. So what do we picture him like? All right. Who was Haman in the Bible? Okay, was he just an evil character? He's this guy with this three-cornered hat, like I said, and he's probably got his little wax mustache that he twirls at the end as he thinks up his diabolical schemes. At least that's what some people think of him as. And it's kind of like the ultimate cartoon villain. At least that's how we often relate to him. So what I'd like to do with you today is sort of take a more grown-ups look at the Megillah, looking at this as adults. What does this story look like? So let's start with that villain that we love to hate, with Haman himself. Is this a real character? Or is it just a caricature of evil? The guy you know is bad because he twirls his mustache, squints his eyes, and wants to do really mean things for no apparent reason, for no real motivation, nothing really going on in his head other than he's a mean guy. Or is there some other sort of real world struggle, some sort of conflict that Haman faced and failed at? Yes, he was a terrible guy, true, but he was terrible because he failed in that struggle. That's a possibility. Of course, if we accept that interpretation, then the next obvious question is, what was the struggle? All right, so let's talk about the story of Haman the Agagite. What I want to suggest to all of you in these following videos is that we get an unparalleled insight into these questions from a fascinating things that the sages tell us. They talk about the names of the various protagonists in the Megillah, and they ask a strange question about them. So in Hebrew it says, Esther min ha-Torah minyan, and they say, where is a hint to Esther in the 5 books of Moses? All right, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, so to speak. So now, of course, Esther lived many, many centuries after the close of the events that are told in the 5 books of Moses. So what the sages are saying is a little strange, and yet they ask that question. Where is a hint to Esther in the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible? Where's the hint to Haman in the Torah? Where is a hint to Mordecai in the Torah? Okay, so let's leave Esther and Mordecai to the side for a moment. And here's what they say about Haman. The hint to Haman within the 5 books of Moses, the first 5 books of the Bible, according to the sages, actually comes from one of the very first stories in the entire Torah, the story of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In that story, they find a word that's spelled exactly the same way as the name of Haman. It has the 3 letters, He, Mem, and Nun. And they say that the He, Mem, and Nun appearance, that's the hint to Haman in the Torah. I'll explain myself, of course. The verse that they point to is a short speech made by our Almighty, Adonai, God, our Creator, to Adam after he's eaten from the fruit of the tree of good and evil. And God says, Hamin ha'etz. Have you in fact eaten from the tree I commanded you not to eat from? These words, Hamin ha'etz, have the same three letters. He, Mem, and Nun. Hamin. Not Haman, but Hamin. Are spelled just the same way, without the vowels. Okay? He, Mem, Nun. It's the hint of Haman in the Torah, the sages say. Now, when you think about it, it's kind of rather startling. Because Haman is a really bad guy. He plots genocide. He's going to kill us all. And Adam, the person that seemingly the sages are comparing him to, the Adam who is addressed by God, have you eaten from this tree? Adam's not such a bad guy. It's not like he went out to just say, oh, I'm going to sin today, or I'm going to do this. I feel like going against God's command. I don't think of him as such a bad guy. Yes, he failed. He fell like we all do now. Okay. He's the father of all of us in a way. He's the very first dude on the face of the earth. He's a pretty good guy. I mean, he does eat from the tree. That's not so good. It condemns all of us, unfortunately. But it's not like it said. He's plotting genocide against everybody. It wasn't plotting to damn all of humanity to sin. Okay? So what did the sages have in mind with this sort of kind of an outlandish comparison? I mean, the Hey, Mem, and Nun appearing with the different vocalization, that is a vowelization, adding of vowels, earlier in the Torah and the Tree of Knowledge story. It's not like the greatest of reasons to connect these two stories. So where are they coming from? Where are they trying to arrive at? So what is the deeper meaning behind Haman and Purim? So what I want to show you in the next part is that there's a tremendous amount of evidence to support what it is that the sages are saying. What I think they're saying is something very, very deep about the story of the Megillah. That is the story of the book of Esther. Something that takes us well beyond the realm of caricatures. We're dealing with real people here, issues that all of us struggle with daily. Some of the most important issues we ever struggle with, the kinds of issues that are at play in the story of the Garden of Eden itself. Do I need to listen to the voice of the enemy, the devil, or do I want to listen to God? Okay? In order to get some background and to lay the groundwork for the journey, I want to take you on the journey I want to take you on. I want to go back with you to the story of the Garden of Eden to try to get a handle with you on what is going on in that story first. Once we've done so, we'll come back to the Megillah, and I think that we'll see it all with very different eyes. Okay, so let's speak about godly knowledge now. Come with me back into the garden for just a moment. I want to start with you with the most basic, intuitive questions that you can sort of possibly ask about this story, okay? So there are like top 3 questions that one could tend to get about this story. The first, what exactly was the nature of this mysterious tree? A tree of knowledge of good and evil. Such a strange thing, in my opinion. What exactly was this knowledge? The text tells us it was something godly. If you think about it, only God himself had the knowledge of good and evil, yet he chose not to do evil. The serpent says, on the day that you eat from it, you will become like God, and knowing good and evil. What is this godly kind of knowledge of good and evil? What does it really mean? Well, here's another question. What really was the temptation here? It just seems so easy. You and I could have withstood this test, right? Everybody's heard people say this. I had a man tell me this today here in Italy. He says, I would have never done that. You probably would have never done it. And I corrected him. I said, I know myself. And I have to admit, I could have easily done it just as much as Adam. You could have too. We are all sinners. That's how it is. And even if Adam hadn't done it, maybe somebody else in the future would have done it. Eventually, somebody might have eaten from the tree of good and evil. So, you're in paradise. Here are all these trees. You can have any tree that you want. The only thing you've got to do is avoid the one tree. And what happens? That's the one tree we've got to eat from. Kind of like little children. You tell them, here, you can do this and that. And they do these things. But if you tell them not to do it, what do children do? They go and do that one thing you tell them not to do. Don't eat the cookies. You're going to go eat the cookies. Don't go play outside in the traffic or on the street. What are they going to do when you're not looking? They're going to go play on the street in the traffic. So that's just how we are. So, I mean, why would it be so hard? You can eat from everything, every tree that there is. You got bananas, peaches, pears, apples, you name it. We got all of it. Why do we have to have that one tree, that one fruit? Why even go near it? I personally maybe will want to put a fence around it. That way I can make sure I don't go near it. Who knows? I don't know. But so lastly, the third question, what was God thinking in the first place? Why would God put the tree in the garden if he didn't really want us to eat from it? Just leave it out. Don't bother with it. What's the deal with this? So, okay, so you got it. These are the three questions. What exactly was the nature of the tree? How could we have failed such an easy test? And I say we because anybody could have done it. And why did God put the tree there if he doesn't want us to eat from it? So let's try to take a little stab at dealing with these three questions. We'll start with the last one and work our way backwards. Okay, why did God put the tree there if he doesn't want us to eat from it? Let me ask you a question. You're a parent. You give a gift to a child. What do you want to see from that child? Do you really want to see two things? The two things you want to see is this. First, you want to see the child enjoying the toy. I mean, I give you this beautiful toy. I want to see you enjoy it. Isn't that what we want as a parent, maybe? The second is I want you to understand that it came from me. Sometimes that understanding is conveyed by saying thank you, but it doesn't have to be by saying thank you. I really don't even need you to say thank you. I just need you to play with the toy to understand that it was a gift from me. I want to see you really having fun with that toy. You shouldn't live in this fantasy world, and I think that's just the way the world is. That you have these toys because that destroys the relationship between you and me. I gave you this gift. I want you to enjoy it, knowing that it came from me. That's simply what God wanted here, maybe. Okay. He wanted us to just enjoy his creation and also to enjoy our relationship with him, because at that time, God would come and walk and talk with Adam and Eve. So now let's bring these ideas back into the garden. God is our parent in heaven. We are his children. We are his child. He's given us the gift of all these trees. What does he want? He wants us to enjoy eating from all of these trees. He says, Mikol etz hagan achal tochel. From any of these trees you shall eat. Eat. It's the first positive command in the Torah, in the first 5 books of the Bible. Enjoy all of these trees. That was his command. He just wants us to understand that the trees came from him. How do we convey that understanding? There's one tree that's his. By honoring the prohibition not to partake of God's own tree, that's the way we convey our understanding that we're guests in the garden, for one thing, that we're not the owners, that we're there at God's pleasure. That what he's given us with all these trees are his gifts. And when we enjoy them, we're enjoying what he has lovingly given to us. Okay, now that we've laid this groundwork, we're in a position to answer the question, what was the temptation to eat from the tree, that one tree we weren't supposed to eat from? The temptation was to see yourself as the owner of the garden, maybe. You know, it's not so convenient to acknowledge that you're a guest. If I'm a guest, it can all be taken away from me at some point. If I'm a guest, I owe gratitude. I'm indebted to you. It's not so comfortable to always feel like I'm indebted to you. It's more fun to be able to pretend that it's all mine. The temptation to eat from that one last tree is a temptation to masquerade as God, as the owner of the garden, to pretend, if only for a moment, that it's all mine, that it cannot be taken away, that I'm not beholden to the giver. It's a temptation to play God, people. Now, we are in a position to answer the first of the questions that we raised with respect to the tree of knowledge. And that's, what is the nature of this mysterious godly knowledge in the first place. If it's just about avoiding one tree that God set aside for himself, it would have been any tree. It could have been a purple, pink, and polka dotted speckled tree. Why does it have to be a tree of knowledge of good and evil? So let me articulate a theory for you. It goes like this. One of the great mistakes we make when we read the story is that we overthink it. Yes, there's this godly knowledge, so we have to think about very deep theological issues. We have to imagine how being an outside in space and time, who we can't touch, who we can't feel, would see good and evil. But that's very hard to do, okay? There's another very simple way, and it's to assume that the Bible gives us all the facts that we need to know to understand it right here and there. So let's assume that that's true for 1 minute. Let's ask ourselves, here I am. I'm reading just for the first couple of chapters in the book of Exodus, and I get to the story of the tree of knowledge. What are the only things I really need to know about God? I really only know two things about him. I know that he's the creator, and I know that he's the one who keeps on saying tov and lo tov. What does that mean? Tov means good. Lo tov means not good. Okay, because in Hebrew, ken means yes, and lo means no or not. Okay, so yes, after every day of creation, God, vayar Elokim ki tov. What does that mean? God saw that it was good, tov. And when God created man, it said, lo tov, it's not good. Lo tov hayot adam levado. It's not good for a man to be alone. Okay, so here you have your tov and lo tov. God really is the knower of good and not good. Okay, that's the only thing he ever says in the process of creation. And so let's look at this a little bit more closely. What does it mean when God declares something to be good or not good, or even bad, which is in Hebrew, ra? Okay, think about when God did declare something bad. That happened right before the flood. All right, before Noah's flood. Instead of vayar Elokim kitov, and God saw that it was good, we have here in the just before the flood, vayar Elokim ki, and God saw that Rabba Ra'at Ha'adam Ba'aretz, the evil of man that was very great, and God decided to destroy them. We have the word Rabba, Ra. Okay, so seeing something as bad, if you're the creator, means I'm not going to keep it around anymore. It's kind of like, I don't know, not to say that being an architect is creating, but you're coming up with a plan of a building or something, and you look at it, and it looks so good on paper. But then when you go to build it, you're like, wow, that wasn't such a good idea. Maybe I'll just get rid of that part. Let's redo this section and do something different. That's just my opinion. So I'm going to get rid of it. Seeing something as good as I'm the creator says, yeah, I'll keep it. Seeing something is lo tov, not good enough, it means it needs to be improved. Lo tov hayot adam levado. It's not good for man to be alone. God didn't destroy Adam because he's like, oh, guy doesn't have anybody to be with. No, he improved it. He made an improvement. All right. I'm going to make it better. I'm going to give him a mate. Okay, so there are these are the three possible grades. Good, not good enough, and bad. Tov, lo tov, ra. If you think about those grades, that's the responsibility of a creator for its creation. Okay? There are many things on this earth I wish he would have said, that's not good. I'm going to get rid of it. Ra. Okay? Skunks. Stinging things like bees. I hate them. I would have gotten rid of them. At least make them not so they sting. All right. But that's my opinion. Whenever you create, you have to evaluate. Do I think it's good, what I've created? Do I think it's not so good? Should I keep it around? Should I get rid of it? Should I change it? That's a godly knowledge. Though it's not human knowledge. It's the business of a creator to do that. It's not the business of the creature or the creature of the created. Okay? It's not our business what's good and bad. Just enjoy it. So you know there are certain decisions you get to make as a creature. This is the created one. But one of them isn't, this is the way things should be, this is the way the world should be. Even though You often hear people say that all the time. I think this should be this way or that way. I don't think God asked you. So he didn't ask me about bees or other things that I don't like, and I don't think he cares. You know, I often give the Monopoly board analogy to creature and creator. All right, this is a little weird, but just hear me out. You know the game Monopoly. You have the little hat and you have the little shoe, amongst other things. Okay, we have the dog and the thimble, but let's go with the hat and the shoe. As they go around the board, they get to decide whether to build a house on Park Place. That is, if they happen to be one of the ones to land on it and have the opportunity to buy it. But they don't get to decide whether Park Place should be on that side of the board or this side of the board. Only Parker Brothers gets to decide that, right? The game was made by Parker Brothers. All right. Now I think we can understand why eating from the tree is so terribly disastrous. Because godly knowledge in the hands of mankind is knowledge that does not belong, and knowledge that quite literally becomes the root of all human evil. You don't need to be a great theologian to understand this. It's all very intuitive, people. So here's why. What does eating from the tree do for you? It gives you the feeling that you see things as a creator does, that you too can make judgments. Now remember, the only thing he asked us, they had us do besides enjoy his creation, was to give names to things, plants, animals, fish. He let us give names. That's it. Nothing else. So that you too can see judgment. This is the way the world should be, and this is the way it shouldn't be. You have the power to pronounce Tov and Ra as the Creator does, good and bad. There's a problem here, though. There's a confusion here because we human beings, there's another kind of Tov and Ra that we are familiar with, the Tov and Ra of desire. And if you think about it, oftentimes when we say something's good and bad, we're not really saying it according to God's way of saying good and bad. We are thinking of it as what we want, what our desires are. Okay, so Tov and Ra have two meanings. Tov can mean good in the sense of moral, right, and just, but it could also mean good as in the way I like it, the way I desire things, right? The macaroni and cheese is good. I love macaroni and cheese. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's nutritional value is good necessarily, right? But maybe it depends on the kind of pasta or cheese you use, you know? If you use real cheese compared to the powdered, I don't know. That means that I like it. It comports with my desire. It makes it I want it. It's something I like to eat, right? The broccoli, I love broccoli personally, but some people don't. They say, oh, broccoli is bad. It's not a judgment about the broccoli in any objective way. It's a judgment about me, what I like and what I don't like. I don't like it, it's bad. Okay, so human beings were very familiar with the Tov and Ra of desires. But now, when we think we can pronounce ourselves Tov and Ra as in the way things should be, we can very easily confuse the two and mix one for the other. Okay, no greater example of this than the moment that Eve reaches for the tree herself. Listen to the words of the verse, Vatere ha'isha ki tov ha'etz lima achal. Okay, Isha is woman. The woman saw that the tree was good to eat. All right, what kind of good? Well, obviously the context of the verse is this, the desire kind of good. It was good to eat. She liked it and it was appealing. All right. Not like you looked at the tree and said, wow, that's horrible looking food. Who'd want to touch that? Obviously, it's really good looking. All right. So now we listen to the words, Vatere ha-isha kitov. That's just simply the feminine form of Vayar Elokim kitov. And God saw that it was good. Okay, Vatere ha-isha. Okay, and Vayer Elokim. God saw that it was good. The woman saw that it was good to eat. So what kind of good are we talking about here? There's a part of her, a part of mankind, that when you look at the thing you want to eat, says, this is the way it should be. Now, bear with me. This will eventually get back to the story of Haman, but this is interesting. I should be allowed to have this because I want it. That's the way it should be. That's it. In that kind of world, I can rationalize anything. And we humans are really good at that. In that kind of world, I'm never wrong because whatever I want, that's the way it should be. And what are people being taught today? What Yeshua, Jesus, said would happen in the end times. People will live their own pleasure. They will decide what is good and what is not good. What is truly good in God's eyes will be called bad. What is bad in God's eyes will be called good. And that's exactly what we have today. Okay, we have it with declaring homosexuality as being good, or this and that as being good when it's not, or things that are bad, like speaking out against sin. People are saying it's hate speech, it's bad, or you hate these people on that. No, we're trying to speak the truth. But as human beings, we've twisted all around. You know, one of the really maddening things about living in the post-tree world is that no one ever thinks they're wrong anymore. Like I said, no one ever thinks they're evil. You can meet the most evil guy in the world. They don't think they're evil. They think they're doing the world a favor. Hitler himself kills over 6 million Jews plus other people, and that's the way the world should be in his eyes. Desire can now hide behind a smokescreen. It never reveals itself for what it is anymore. It dresses up all high and mighty. There's the other kind of good, the just and moral and true kind of good. This is the distortion of the post-tree world. It has so many real-world consequences every day. It's not just Hitler or Stalin or Lenin or this person or that crazy guy in North Korea that become possible through this. The destruction of all our interpersonal relationships comes through this. So think about the natural inability to compromise. Where does that come from? We don't want to compromise as people. We want to have it our way. I get into an argument with you. Why is it so hard to get out of the arguments, people? Why is it so hard to compromise? Okay. I see it this way. You see it that way. It's not like there's a right and wrong maybe in this situation. There might be. I don't know. But most of the times it's not. One person sees it one way. You see it the other way. Nobody wants to compromise. So what do? We don't get out of this argument. So now you know. If I understand that I'm a little hat and I have one perspective, and that you're the little shoe and that you have another perspective, so then we can compromise. Okay. But if I'm little hat and I think I'm Parker Brothers, I have the only way of looking at this. How can I possibly compromise? I mean, the truth is with me. I'd be giving in on the truth. I can't lie. I should back down from what I know to be true and right and good because what? Just to get along with you, little shoe? Our propensity to dress up our own self-interest, our own desires, in the noble robes of principle and justice and truth and righteousness is a very poisonous thing. This easy conflation of the two kinds of good, desire and that which is noble, right, and true, is the greatest struggle in the Megillah, too, in the story of Esther. So let's go back now to read the Megillah and focus once more on that strange comparison that sages make between Adam and Haman. What might they mean by this? So we will see. This is the end of the first part, and next week we will have the second part. So thank you for joining us today. I hope you've had a little bit of fun with this Bible study. I know I did. And may you be blessed, and shalom to all of you. If you have any comments regarding this teaching, please leave them in the comment section. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to reach out to us also on our website is simply just Google Village of Hope and Justice Ministry and you'll find us. I will add a link to that in the description part of the video. So thank you for joining me today, and shalom to all of you. Now for the Aaronic blessing. Adesso la benedizione di Aarone. Yevarechecha Adonai veishmerecha.
Yair Adonai panav alecha v'yichuneka. Yisa Adonai panav alecha v'yasim lecha shalom. L'shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Sarha shalom shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. In the name of Yeshua the Messiah, the Prince of Peace. Shalom.
Che il Signore vi benedica e vi protegga. Il Signore faccia risplendere il suo volto su di voi e vi sia propizio. Che il Signore elevi il suo volto su di voi e vi dia la pace. In nome di Yeshua, Gesù, il Messia, il Principe della pace. Shalom.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you, be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom. Shabbat shalom.